Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be looking at an issue from a comic series that I read a lot when I was a kid. In fact, I would say it's the series that got me into the medium itself, which is crazy because, as you'll see soon, because the character himself isn't really associated with comics. Well, I mean, he's had a prolific history with the medium, but he is a video game character, mostly. I'm of course talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, and the comic I'm going to be talking about is issue 72 of Sonic the Comic. So let's get this under the camera, we'll take a look, and I can explain to you why this specific issue of STC is very important to me. Welcome back, guys. How are we all doing? So on today's video, I'm going to be talking about this very issue 72 of Sonic the Comic. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sonic the Comic was a British publication by Fleetway, which was what you'd expect. It was Sonic the Hedgehog as a comic. But not to be confused with the Archie comics, which came out in the US, which are also based on the same character. The Fleetway stuff was written and drawn by a lot of people that worked in the British comic industry and that worked on things such as 2000 AD, most prominently. I believe there were some people that worked on Dread and stuff, or actually involved in Sonic the Comic at certain points. I think it ran for 200 plus issues. I think it was like 223 issues or something like that. I might be wrong, something like that. I should have done my research beforehand. But the reason this is significant, to me at least, is because issue 72 was the first ever Sonic the Comic I owned. I remember getting this, my mum bought me this in Safeway. Does anybody remember Safeway in the UK? It was a supermarket chain. Morrison's eventually bought them out. Anyway, it doesn't matter, that's not what the video's about. But yes, so, yes, I remember getting this in Safeways in Fakenham. And yeah, it's a very early memory. I mean, when did this come out? 1996. It was a very early memory in my life. But Sonic the Comic, it was bound to, I can't believe it's my second video and I'm already talking about Sonic the Comic, but Sonic the Comic was going to be something I was absolutely going to be talking about on the channel, just because it's one of the top reasons I'm even into the medium is because of this comic. Strange, it's very strange. The reason I have any love for Sonic the Hedgehog is because of this comic. The video games are great, but it was because of this. It was because of this comic. And this issue in particular is what started it all. Sonic the Comic was very much a Sega magazine as well. Like, as you can see, it was in UK's official Sega comic. So it had like comic strips for Sonic the Hedgehog and the rest of his cast, but it also had other video game related stories as well to do with Sega and stuff. And as well as like reviews and stuff like that, you see. Sonic the Comic has got such a huge fandom behind it, and rightfully so. I mean, Sonic the Comic is just so good. So anyway, let's dive in and let's have a look at issue 72 of Sonic the Comic. Oh, we could win exclusive Sonic artwork as well. I wish I knew that as a kid. I do actually own some Sonic the Comic artwork from a certain artist who we'll see in this comic, because I'm a huge fan of his, so I actually own an original page from this comic. It's one of the only comic series that I actually own original art for. That's how much of a big fan I am of Sonic the Comic. So yeah, free scratch and sniff stickers. I don't know where they've gone. This is my childhood copy. I have no idea where they've gone. Sorry guys, so we won't be seeing that. So let's have a look let's have a quick look at the back as well. Oh look, an advert for the Octan van. The Octan, no, it's like an F1 holder for Lego. I remember seeing a lot of Lego adverts on the old Sonic the Comic as well. Anyway, right, let's dive in. Let's have a look. So, now in preparation of this video, I did read this issue. I also went back and read a bunch of issues because this is I never thought of this when I was a kid. I think this is crazy. So my first issue of Sonic the Comic, and it was this story. It was The Return of Chaotix, part 6, guys. Part 6 of this story. That was my first ever Sonic the Comic. And this isn't the only story in this comic, because it was an anthology of other comics as well. Like 2000 AD, it worked a similar way, where it would be like, you know, little shorter stories, little shorter things that maybe you'd probably, if you put them all together, they'd be the length of like a Western comic, or, like, sorry, an American comic or something like that. But they were like, you know, cut into chunks, and then the comic came out fortnightly, you see. So, but that was funny when I saw that. I had like, oh wow, it's part 6. So I actually went back to part 1 of this story and read the whole thing up until this issue. So I wanted to make sure that I was up to date with any story that was in this issue of Sonic the Comic. So that's why I went back on some of them. I didn't need to go forward, at least, because I think the stories that are in here are all, that's the other thing as well. I must have been just super unlucky, because all these stories were the endings of other stories, so there you go. Anyway, so yeah, you had a control zone thing here, which was just the credits. You got like an introduction from Megadroid, who was, you know, the editor. I'm sure if you looked up online, there's people that have looked up in the Sonic fandom, looked up the Sonic the Comic stuff and worked out who did what and stuff like that. But yes, it was under a character called Megadroid. But as you can see, there's some stuff about like the charts of what's selling on the Mega Drive, on the Mega CD, the Master System, and the Game Gear as well, the Sega consoles that were out at the time. Didn't even know what a Mega CD was though when I was a kid, so it's quite weird. I don't think I read any of that. I didn't care. I wanted it. I was here for this. And this, guys, is the first time I ever saw the artwork of the glorious Richard Elson. This is also written by Nigel Kitching, who's also a fantastic writer of the Sonic the Comic stuff. But Richard Elson was like a huge inspiration of mine. Still is. I find his artwork astounding, and he defined the way Sonic looked for me. I think there's like 3 different eras of Richard Elson. We're in the second era in terms of the way he would draw Sonic and the Sonic universe and stuff. So yeah, this blew my mind, seeing this, and I was just like, wow, what is this? And this is, oh no, wait, whoa, gone too far. Seeing this comic and the way it looks, it's like, because I bear in mind, guys, when the games were out, we just saw a chart of the games. There was only like a Mega Drive, Mega CD, Game Gear, and Master System, right? So I didn't have a Mega CD, so I'm only looking at Sonic the Hedgehog from like the Mega Drive era of games. So this is incredible. This was, and I don't think the cartoon was really on. I didn't really see the cartoon that often. So this was my way of expanding the Sonic lore and seeing Sonic as not just that guy on the TV, that I control the TV. You're seeing this character with the stories. You see him in different angles as well. And this is what I meant by Richard Elson would define the way it looks. Like, I mean, like that pose, for example, you wouldn't see that pose in the video games at all. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Or like straight on here, as you can see down here. Not to mention, I didn't know who any of these guys were. So at the start, you see like Vector the crocodile here, Mighty the armadillo, Porker Lewis, Espio, and Charmy. I don't know who any of these people are. I had no idea who they were. Didn't realise that half of them came from a video game. That was on the 32X. So, but yeah. But this was so good, this comic. And then he was fighting. They were fighting, so I should say, the Metallics, which was the Brotherhood of Metallics, they were called, and they were just like loads of different metal Sonics, but they called them Metallics. This was just astounding. It's like I said, it blew my mind. I don't think I ever saw comics do this kind of stuff. I mean, like I said, it's kind of like your equivalent of 2000 AD for a younger audience. Do you know what I mean? You're sort of like going, wow, this is what comics can be. And you know, the amount of movement and stuff, and just seeing Sonic fighting this villain that wasn't even Robotnik, and I think he became less of a two-dimensional villain at this point, because he was a villain who was scared of another villain, and I was like, wait, there's a bigger villain than Dr. Robotnik. It was, yeah, really good. So even though it was part 6 of a story, I still looked at this and go, right, I want to see more. I loved the Sonic games when I was a kid. I wanted to see more of this. And then Grimer, who is Dr. Robotnik's assistant, again, didn't know who he was, but Grimer was a creation for the comic as well. So this is the other thing, because much like myself, I didn't have a lot to go by, nor did the writers and the artists of Sonic the Comic. They kind of had to just you know, they made up a lot of their own stuff, you know what I mean? I think that's why I appreciate it so much. I should say as well, the lettering is done by Ellie DeVille as well. I should say that, we should credit everybody here, so sorry about that, I forgot to mention that. But yeah, Grimer would then reveal the Metallics, which is the one based on Knuckles, so Metal Knuckles basically. And that was the ending, and I was like, what is this? So cool. So then I read this. By the way, guys, I didn't actually read this version of the comic. I decided to read it on my iPad. So there are people, if you do want to read Sonic the Comics, I completely condone piracy when it comes to this because they're not available officially in print. You can find like copies of it, but if you want to read full stories and stuff, there's people who have scanned them online. So I highly recommend if you get the chance to find them and you want to read them, I would check them out. They're obviously a bit aged and they're for children because it's like 90s and it's for kids and, you know. But I mean, like, if you're a Sonic fan, and you've never read Sonic the comic, I highly recommend you should, because I think it's easily the best thing that's ever come out of Sonic is Sonic the comic. Right, this here, I believe was, oh yeah, so I was reading this, and this is we'll go back to comics in a minute, but I want to talk about this quickly. So this was a UK convention, a UK comic art convention, and a lot of the people that worked on Sonic the comic were there, including Richard Elson, my boy Richard Elson right there, and Nigel Kitching. Saw Judge Dredd there. So yeah, there was a bunch of Sonic the Comic stuff there, and they just had a little article on it. It's pretty cool. God, imagine being there that time. That'd be really, really cool. And I think then there's a competition to try and see if you can win this artwork, which I absolutely would have done. If I'd paid attention, I would have absolutely done it. So after that sixth part of that story, where I was like, wow, this is what Sonic could be like. This is what comics could be like. Awesome. There's this issue here, story here, and this is part 4, and it's Knuckles having a discussion with these dinosaur spirits, and I'm like, what the hell is going on now? And it feels like some sort of weird, like, metaphysical type conversation about stuff, about life, and about, like, maybe not metaphysical, it's probably the wrong word I was thinking of, but there's a lot of discussion of just like, so Knuckles is, if you don't know anything about Knuckles, Knuckles is the last echidna on the floating island, or Angel Island, he's the last one. And these dinosaurs obviously went extinct as well, so it's them trying to have these conversations of like, who has it worse, basically. And because in this story, and this is why I had to go back and read some of this, because again, this is also part 4 of a story, so I didn't know what this was either. But I read up about it, and apparently at some point the Master Emerald was destroyed, and he's trying to rebuild it and needs these emeralds. And the dinosaurs are the guys that are kind of in the way, these dinosaur spirits. And he's sort of like, they start to try and fight him and stuff. And also, let me stop there a second. Let's go back to the artwork and, the script. Nigel Kitching again. Great Nigel Kitching. Nigel Dobbin is the other one. He's my other favourite artist. I mean, I think it's probably because I got this issue, but Nigel Dobbin draws these characters in a way I don't think I've ever seen again. And it feels like you're looking at, I feel like I'm looking at a European comic, guys, do you know what I mean? And it is European, I know that, but like in terms of like, I don't think of it as like Knuckles or Sonic or anything like that. I think of it as like, cool, highbrow European comics, it feels like. But just the artwork is just so nice, and the way it's been painted and stuff is gorgeous. And the way Nigel captures the emotions and the facial expressions it's very impressive. I just can't believe that they basically got some sprite artwork and stuff like that, and then they had to work with that, and they came up with this stuff. It's insane. And you can say that about Archie comics as well, but I feel with here it's just a lot. I feel that Fleetway, not to offend anybody who likes Archie, but I feel like the Fleetway stuff is just a lot more sophisticated in terms of the way it's the approaches that these cartoonists, these writers, these letters everyone takes. That is a beauty. I love that. That I would have that as just a piece of art. I've got some Richard Elson stuff. Some Richard Elson pages. I would love to see if Nigel Dobbin was selling any like of his original pages. This is beautiful. I love this, and this sticks out in my head quite a lot. Just Knuckles sort of way. They have a conversation as well. There's a bit of a fight. They have a conversation about it, and so Knuckles can basically continue living. he gives him the emerald, and I'm paraphrasing the whole story basically, but he gives him the emerald so he can then proceed to create a master emerald and keep the flowing island afloat and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. We're not here to necessarily talk about the story though. We're here to talk just about, you know, the structure of it and stuff. So I'm just trying to put myself central. Getting used to this, guys. This is only my second video, so I'm trying to get used to the fact that it's going to be central. Yeah, not much else to say here. I just think this is a beautiful piece. I still think Richard Elson is my favourite of the two, but I do really like Nigel Dobbyn. I think Nigel Dobbyn is definitely a close second. I feel Richard Elson, I think it's because Richard Elson was the first guy I saw, and like I said, he defined the way Sonic would look for me. Nigel Dobbyn, I think, predominantly drew Knuckles, and his stuff is great. I actually would say I prefer his Knuckles to Richard Elson's, actually. Maybe. I'm looking at the art now. I'm just looking at to my right. I've got a piece of artwork from Richard Elson on the wall, and it's got Knuckles and Sonic on there. And I think his Knuckles would have a longer snout, while this one, I like the fact that he's a bit more contained. He's a bit more squished. It feels like when you look at it, I feel, and I'm really trying to word this the best way I can without it sounding like derogative, and I don't mean that at all. Because I love these two, and I love the work that they produced, and I love this comic, so I don't want to ever feel like I'm being negative or anything. What I'm trying to say is, though, I feel Richard Elson gels with Sonic so well, and I feel Nigel Dobbyn, his stuff feels like it's so sophisticated that I want to see it in something else. And I mean that in a sort of like, Richard Elson and Sonic, I feel like, do you know what I mean? It suits that world, while I feel with this guy, it feels like this is like, it's definitely been given a job. He's clearly a really good draftsman, but I would love to see him do other stuff. I don't know, I'm rambling, but I think that's kind of how I feel with Dobbyn. Well, I feel like I could easily, put this way, I love the fact that we've got different artists, and I think it's really cool, but I would gladly read a whole comic of just Richard Elson artwork of Sonic the Hedgehog, especially when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog, you know? So, he also, sorry, just to go back to Richard Elson again, I also like the way he draws hands. I have a thing for drawings of hands in terms of, like, you know, what cartoonists can do. Like, I look at Steve Ditko from the previous video and stuff, and they've all got, and I love drawing hands. Like, people struggle to draw hands, but I'd gladly draw hands. I can't see. By the way, if you're wondering what all this stuff is in the background, this is my actual artwork I've drawn here over on my streams. I'll talk more about that shortly. Nice Chopper poster here, not been removed. I'm surprised they didn't remove it. I think it's probably because, did it attach to? Oh, that's why. I think my mum probably said, don't do that because you're going to ruin the comic. And I was like, absolutely not, because this is beautiful. Advert on the back though. For the Disney Channel, didn't have that. What's the Disney Channel? I did eventually. I think we did when we were teenagers, we had Sky, but I probably didn't ignore that. I looked at this. So this was, it's a one-off story. Hooray, finally, just a one-off story. And this is for the Odor Zone, which I believe, even though it's not quite accurate, this cover, which is drawn by, I should say, who drew the cover? Who drew the cover? Does it say? Who drew the cover? Oh, cover art. Carl Flint. Carl Flint drew this, and I believe it must be a reference to this story, because this is about a skunk robot. And this one's, but the story itself is drawn by Mike Hadley, and the lettering is Tom Frame. And you're not going to believe who wrote this. And I didn't know this until I read it again. This was written by Mark Millar, as in Kick-Ass, as in Marvel Civil War, Nemesis, Kingsman, all this other stuff. This was he wrote this, and I gotta say, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of the writing. I think at some point I see it somewhere where I think it was just like, it was very weird how they have these skunk characters and they're all speaking with a French accent. I suppose a reference to Pepe Le Pew. It was, I don't think the story was that good. I'm not gonna lie, but I think you're in this. Oh, look, there you go again. Sonic from behind. This comic really defined all that with the 3D sort of. This wasn't Richard Elson though, but yeah, it was, you know, still. still cool to see. But yeah, I found this story, yeah, I think it's hard because you've only got this one, it's a one-off story. There are like, what, how many pages? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages to tell a story in, so I get it, and I think that can be quite a difficulty. But it was just very much all right. While I think the rest of the comic stories I found I was more invested in them, even though they were only like, you know, part 6 or part 4 of an existing story, and the next story in this is the ending of another story. So there's a lot of stories that end in this, but I found it more intriguing than this one. This is me reading as an adult. As a kid, I probably didn't care. Do you know what I mean? I probably looked at it and was like, wow, cool, wow. I don't know how I felt when I was a kid reading this, because it was so long ago. Like I said, this was the first ever issue of Sonic the Comic I owned, so. But decent art though. I think the stuff that Mike Hadley was doing was great. It's very on model. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Robot's really cool as well, I like this. The way the running is captured in this is fantastic. I love the smoke coming out of it, and because I have a love-hate relationship with the spinny legs thing. When I was drawing Sonic, I tried not to do the spinny legs thing, because I know in later games they stopped doing that. It was very much in the sprites, but I don't know, rereading this, I'm like, I actually quite like this. I think I want to go back to this if I was drawing Sonic. Yeah, so he destroys the skunk robot, and then there's this massive skunk guy in it. I don't know, I thought it was a weird story. I didn't particularly like it, like I said. But it was created by the great Mark Millar, famous Mark Millar. Q-Zone, right, so here is a review for Beavis and Butthead on the Mega Drive and the Game Gear. I didn't really read this because I don't need to see a review. It's still cool though. I like the fact that you got video game reviews mixed in with the comic. I think it was a great idea to make it like a Sega magazine with comics. You see that a lot in Japan. There was a lot of, still to this day, you've got like magazines that are specifically for fishing or something like that, and then they'll just have fishing comics in it. But then they will have like adverts for fishing rods and stuff. And I just think, I really like that. I would love to see more magazines do that in the UK, to be honest, for adults or kids, but you know. I don't know if they do that now. I don't think so though. So yeah, there's the review of that. Yeah, it's 2 pages. I won't go into it. We don't need to read a review about Beavis and Butthead, but there you go. Oh, next issue is about Mega Drive game tips. That sounds good. And then this was the final story that they had here, which was Sonic's World, Brute Force, which is part 4. And now this was very, very confusing as a kid, because I'm like, who the hell's this? This isn't Sonic. Who the hell's this? Who the hell are these guys? And it felt like I wasn't even sure if we were in the same world. Then Robotnik turns up, so I was like, okay, maybe that's fair then. Because these are full of characters that I don't know who they are, but these are all Sonic-related characters, but they are Sonic characters made for Sonic the Comic. They're specific to that world, so we don't see any characters like this character, by the way, is called Johnny Lightfoot, who is based on, I don't know if Johnny Lightfoot was the name of the rabbit that you save, you know, when you're playing the Mega. For people who know what I'm talking about, when you play Sonic the Hedgehog, you would you know, spin dash or whatever onto a badnik, and then an animal will pop out. Porker Lewis and this guy are based on those animals, and I don't know if they're called Porker and Johnny in the video game, but they're called Porker and Johnny on this, and then they become part of the Freedom Fighters, because again, much like the Archie comics, there are Freedom Fighters in this. I don't know if that was an accident or something, but they had this idea of Robotnik being this dystopian leader, why can't I think of the word? This dictator who, like, you know, takes over Mobius and stuff. And they inhabited this world with the actual animals that you see in the video game, but then they just bulk them up. So like Johnny Lightfoot was suddenly a character with a jacket called Sweet Jacket, by the way. We'll see in a minute, see more of it. And he was one of the Freedom Fighters. And this story is, that's what Sonic's World was. It was just like stories about that were Sonic adjacent but didn't have Sonic in it. And I think that's this one. And Brutus was this robot that had the power, the brainwaves of Robotnik, and he was just this evil guy that was also going to eventually overthrow Robotnik. That was what was happening in the story anyway. That is the campest pose I've ever seen, and I love it. That's very JoJo or something. I really enjoy that. I don't know why he's doing that. I read the dialogue and I was like, I don't know why he's doing that, but that is a sweet, pose. I really enjoy that. I like the design of Brutus as well. I think this is the thing, these don't look like Sonic things, and I think that's what I find beautiful about this comic and this series was they were incorporating things into this comic that don't really look Sonic-like, but they did it anyway. You know, they did it anyway, and because they could. And it just, you know, it's very much British comic sensibilities sort of like mushed together with Sonic the Hedgehog at the time, or what they knew about Sonic the Hedgehog at least, what they could get away with. It's just, yeah, and Brutus was one of those characters where I was like, what? That doesn't look right. There's also a character called Captain Plundar who I really enjoy, which, by the way, guys, if Sonic the Comic is gonna definitely make more than one appearance on the channel, I assure you, because Sonic the Comic is one of the most important comics to me ever. For me, in terms of my life, it's super important. It's the reason I'm super into comics, and that's because of this comic. So we'll see more of it anyway. But yeah, Captain Plundar is another character where I'm like, that feels like a character that shouldn't be in the Sonic comics, but you've just popped it in there because you can. And you haven't got much to go by. Like I said, this was when you had Sonic 1 to 3 and Sonic CD maybe. So, you know, you only had the stories you had from those games and that was it. And you're doing a fortnightly comic, so, you know. Sweet jacket, that's what I'm talking about. Look at that back of that jacket. Awesome. And that's it really. There's not really much else to talk about in the story. Just that, you know, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It was written by Lou Stringer, who's one of the other famous Sonic the Comic writers, and art by Carl Flint, who did the cover, actually. Weirdly enough, did the cover for the other story, but not for this one. Colouring by Don D. Cox, and lettering by Steve Potter. Now I think this is the first time there's been colouring mentioned, and I think it's because, as far as I'm aware, I think the other artists did their own colours. I think that's why. I think it was safe to say if they've said, they did their own colours. Like the Sonic the Comic colouring, I know. I mean, this stuff I'm sure is Richard Elson colouring it. The original artwork I've got is this very similar colours. So, God, that is such an awesome double page spread. I love that. Well, not double page spread, but you know what I mean. Awesome spread, I should say. Was there anything else? No, I don't think there was. Oh, we'll have a look quickly. Speed lines, which is the letters. I read some of the letters. It's very cute. It's very cute to see who are now, you know, kids that are now fully grown adults and what they wrote. I did write to a few comics myself. I never wrote to Sonic the Comic though, and that's one of my regrets as an adult. I wish I wrote to Sonic the Comic at one point. But yeah, they posted some of your art and stuff. It was really, really cool. There's this person, Sarah Rose. I don't know if you're watching Sarah, but yeah, Sonic out, Knuckles in. I don't agree with you. Make it the Knuckles the Comic. No, Sonic the Comic, it works. No, Sarah. And they won one of these cool cameras as well, which I was like, oh man, I wish I did that. Send your emails. This is very early. Send your emails. Wow. Blimey. I won't read the letters though. I don't need to do that. But then in the next issue, they've got some. They've got Shining Force, and this is what I was talking about. So the comic would have Sega stories. I know I read the Shinobi comic in this as well, and that was awesome. But interestingly enough, the first issue I ever had of Sonic the Comic didn't have any other Sega titles. It was just Sonic the Comic. But when I went back to read, so I went back 5 issues so I could get part 1 of this story. There were like Sega stories in there. There was the Decapped Ahead, I think it's called. Is that the name of the game? But yeah, they did that one, which is like a sort of like a horror monster comedy series, and that was really funny. But yeah, obviously I didn't really talk about it much because it's not in this comic. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this this video, and that's me talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Comic number 72. This will not be the last appearance of Sonic the Comic, not by a long shot, I assure you. In the meantime, guys, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to be doing some more of these. It's been really fun, and please subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel, and give the video a like. It really helps. It helps the growth of this of the channel. And if you like the work you see here, sorry, I'll move that. If you like the work you see here, this is most of this. I would say 99% of this I drew over on my stream. I stream every Monday at 8 PM UK time over on here and on Twitch at the same time. So yeah, come join me for that. I'm predominantly drawing in pencil and ink, and usually requests from people in the chat. So who knows? I might draw something that you're a character from the world of pop culture that you want to see. But yeah, in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.